My name is Justin Patterson. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we were just affected by the flood of 2019. So with the flood of 2019, leading up to it, there was a lot of questions that didn't get answered prior to that, and then after the fact, there's still a lot of questions that are kind of looming out there. And so I'm an aerospace engineer. I've been that for about 18 years now. I live and breathe data and information, so I dug into some of this. I was able to answer some of my questions, but I still have a lot of them open and uncertainties. And I know there's a lot of folks right now in the aftermath trying to rebuild their homes, and they're lacking that confidence and reassurance from the Corps and from authorities that they're going to be able to rebuild with confidence. And so this presentation that I've put together, I'm going to walk through, answer some of my questions, and it's intended to provide motivation for that cause and corrective action from the Corps to provide some more information and reassurance to those homeowners that they can build forward with confidence. So I appreciate your feedback and input, and we'll get into it. Okay, all right, so Tulsa, Oklahoma is a very vibrant and growing city. Downtown has been growing leaps and bounds over the past 10 years in development. The rivers and lakes in northeastern Oklahoma are integral to the culture here, so it's a very great place to live. The picture you see here is actually from the raft race going down the Arkansas River leading into downtown Tulsa from the previous year. So a little bit of my background, like I discussed, aerospace. In aerospace, we have lots of strict requirements and stringent requirements that we go through to verify we have compliance to those requirements. If there's ever, God forbid, an escape or an issue, we do have a root cause and corrective action that we go through to verify that that's going to happen again, or that we've learned something from this that we can apply towards the future. So just a little bit of background in regards to where I've come from and what I'm used to and experienced in engineering, especially in aerospace engineering. So a little bit about floodplain facts. So the 100-year flood is basically a 1% annual chance that flood will happen in any given year. So 100-year flood, 1% chance. The 500-year flood is a 0.2% annual chance that a flood will occur in any given year. So giving you a little bit of insight in that regard. So basically right now there have been two 500-year floods in Tulsa in the past 33 years. The homes that flooded in 86 and in 2019 were both 100 and 500-year floodplain homes, with the majority of them being the 500-year floodplain homes. So with this, it gets your head scratching just a little bit to try to figure out what's going on. Was there a miscalculation in that? Or why do we have two major floods inside of 33 years? So a lot of folks have seen this. This comes from the Army Corps Engineers website. You can pull this data for Lake Keystone. It shows the water coming in regards to cubic feet per second and the water going out in regards to cubic feet per second. It's my understanding this is a lesson learned from the 1986 flood, where they didn't quite see the bow wave of water coming in that they needed to address. And so this was a resultant from that, a lessons learned that they were able to apply in the future, which is now. So again, we can see that. All right, the cubic feet per second is the water coming in and water going out, but a lot of times what's referred to as the volume of water is an acre foot. And so just a little bit of background on that. An acre foot, basically you've got 1 acre, 66 feet by 660 feet by one height or one elevation of 1 foot. And so when you're talking the volume of water, typically they'll say acre feet. So I was interested in regards to 2019 and the water that they were managing in May of 2019, thinking, gosh, there must have been a monumental amount of water that they were trying to displace. And that's actually right. So when you look at 2019 as compared to the past 10 years prior, 2019 dwarfs the previous years. If you take all 10 years prior, it basically equals what 2019 was. And so this was, a fairly historic event going into 2019. As you can see, over 8 million acre feet of water having in need of being managed in Lake Keystone in May of 2019. So one thing I was concerned about was the lake levels and the reaction times. So if you look, as an example, year 2015, it was a similar type scenario. At the start of the month, basically in May, you're about right at the same level you are between 2019 and 2015. As you can see here in 2015, it started to spike, and what the Corps saw was that, hey, we have to manage this and react to this. So again, this is a lake level. So at that point in time, they reacted to it, put out more than they were taking in, and were able to drop that level down. Now, it did continue to climb in that, but they were able to manage that where we did not have flooding in 2015. In 2019, it was a little bit different story. So we started at the same level in May, and it skyrocketed for the first half of May in 2019. About midway through the month, the Corps of Engineers did have a really good response on Facebook saying, hey, we're putting out 100,000 cubic feet per second. We understand this is coming. We're managing it. But basically, they were hunting for bear, weren't loaded for it, and didn't realize it. And so they tried to recover in the middle of May, but however, they weren't able to, of course, as we know from the flood. And so that was something that could have been mitigated earlier on. In my opinion, we could have been able to drop that lake level to try to address this. But again, this is a question that we need answered: is why was there such a long reaction time in 2019 as opposed to 2015 when they reacted, as you can see there. All right, there was a quote from the Corps of Engineers, an unpopular quote about making decisions based on water on the ground. I understand the statement. Typically in engineering, we try to plan ahead if we can. One of the 7 habits of highly effective people from Stephen Covey is being proactive. So ideally, we'd like to be proactive. I understand in weather conditions you don't quite have that ability, but water on the ground, they're monitoring, and we are monitoring Keystone Lake, the water coming in and the water going out. So what I see here is there's water on the ground. There's a full 2 weeks of water, and the lake level just skyrocketing. So there's decisions that could be made at that point. So again, water is on the ground, water's coming in, they're seeing it. So why the slow reaction time on that? Quote number 2 from Corps of Engineers that I've heard is they have discussed that the water in the conservation pool belongs to states, agencies, and municipalities and other entities, not them. So my question there is this a cry for help? Is it responsibility but no authority? You're responsible for the safety of others. You're responsible for this. However, is this something that you need to request assistance on? Do we need the people that are making those decisions involved in that? Was that the 2 weeks in the slow reaction time? So again, the question here is this a cry for help, the responsibility but no authority? Okay, a little bit of background on the actual flood itself. So I was there moving my folks out. The Tuesday before, there was some concern. They had talked to the Meadow Valley area. We got a U-Haul and packed up some critical things as a precaution. We were trying not to panic the neighborhood because there was still kind of the thought of, this is just a precaution. It's not going to really happen. We haven't heard any communication. Wednesday, I went to work. Got feedback from my sister at 10 o'clock, hey, we need to go. So I got to my folks' house around 11. I personally talked to the emergency management system and the deputy sheriff and asked, should we be evacuating? They said, no, we're not informing anybody to evacuate right now. However, water's rising and you can kind of see it, and we're packing up and getting ready. About 3:30, got to be the point where water was rushing across the road. There's a concern of not being able to evacuate, and so we got everybody out of the house. We were able to come back a little bit later and make our way back in there around 5 o'clock. As you can see here, water's crossing the road and you cannot get past my folks' house. At this point in time, houses are being flooded. So this is Wednesday, May 22nd at 5:20 p.m. So we get through all that, houses are being flooded. We're back at my house, which is about 7 miles away. 24 hours later, I'm hearing some sirens I have not heard in a long time, which is the flood sirens. So this was a little bit of a slap in the face, for lack of a better term. So flood warnings went off 24 hours after homes had been flooded. So this is a question we need answered. Why was that? Why did they not go off earlier? Why did we not get formal communication? There's a lot of homes on the day it did flood where people are rushing in trying to get things out of their homes because there was not the authoritative official communication. Hey guys, it's going to flood. Things are going to happen. We need you to evacuate. One thing the Corps did well afterwards, when the levees were being tested, they asked people to evacuate. So that was the week after the flood. I believe that was a direct result and a lesson learned from just a poor communication about the town and country area being flooded. So again, they were able to address that with the levees as they were being tested in those communities. However, there was a lack of communication in the town and country area about the official notice of flooding. Yes, so feelings and what's next. This is how the homeowners feel. We are trusting the Corps of Engineers to make decisions in our best interest and help us and our families. And the homeowners standing here, expecting they know what they're doing and putting their faith and trust in them. So this is meant to be somewhat humorous. But again, it's, when things go south, the homeowner is the one that gets the fecal matter all over them, not the Corps. So what we need right now is some sort of reassurance of lessons learned for rebuild. And so they need that to confirm, yes, we've got those lessons learned, we've seen this, we think we can mitigate it in the future. Again, 2 500-year floods in 33 years is a bit concerning. Conclusion, so a couple questions, or a few questions to be answered. Why so long for the response time on release? Who has the authority? If it's not the Corps, then who does, and do we need to get them engaged? Is there any type of incentive to maintaining a large pool in the lake? Any type of financial incentive that needs to be addressed? Why the failure in the flood sirens 24 hours late? Is there a reassurance of lessons learned that we can give to the public so when they rebuild, they have that reassurance that it's just not going to happen again next week, next month, next year, that there's lessons learned that can be applied towards this? And then when will a root cause and corrective action RCCA report be available to reassure the public that yes, we've seen this, we've addressed this, there are things we've learned from this, and here's how we're going to apply that to the future. So I definitely appreciate your time in reviewing this. I hope this helps and provide that motivation to the Corps to give that root cause and corrective action report to the public. Here are my references if you'd like to go in and take a look at those. Okay, that was a presentation. I appreciate your input and feedback. I do hope and pray that the folks that are affected do get the questions answered they needed, plus the reassurance they need to move forward, because there's a lot of uncertain people right now. So I appreciate your input and feedback, and thank you very much.